Hey everyone, today I'm so excited to share this video. I don't think I've shared a sheet pan video on my channel yet, so this is going to be a first. I love making sheet pan dinners. I just kind of got out of the habit of making them, but last year I was addicted, so I have tons of recipes I'm really excited to share with you. Today I'm going to be giving you 4, but don't worry, more will be coming soon. We're starting this video off with this super easy cheesy sausage with broccoli and potatoes. I'm preheating my oven to 400 degrees and then I have about 7 medium potatoes here. I'm just going to cube those pretty small. When I get those all cut up, I'm going to take a sheet pan and just line that with some foil for easy cleanup. I did add on some olive oil, that way my potatoes don't stick. Now I'm just transferring all my potatoes over to my sheet pan, and then we're going to add a little bit more olive oil over the top. That way our seasonings stick to the potatoes. The first thing I'm adding is this Parmesan Ranch seasoning. This is one of my favorite seasonings. I use it all the time. And then I'm also going to be using some of this buttery steakhouse, and no, I'm not measuring any of this. I'm just making sure that my potatoes are well covered. The last thing I'm adding to my potatoes is garlic powder and red pepper flakes. Once all my seasonings are on the potatoes, I'm just going to use my hands and make sure everything is well combined. Now these are going in the oven to start for 15 minutes. Next, we're going to work on cutting up our sausage. I'm using smoked turkey sausage, but you can use whatever kind you like. I'm slicing these at an angle, that way they are in bigger pieces. And I'm just going to go ahead and cut up both of those, and once the potatoes are done, we'll add those to the sheet pan. And then we're also going to cut up some broccoli. I have this bag here. This is fresh broccoli from the produce department. I'm going to cut off all the huge stems and then just cut this down into bite-sized pieces, and then after I get those all cut up, I'll give them a good rinse. Now the potatoes have completed their 15 minutes in the oven. We're going to go ahead and flip all those around and push them over to the side. Now I'm going to add my sausage on. I'm going to try to lay these all flat, that way they can brown up on the sides. And then of course you're going to want to add your broccoli over to that last little open area of your sheet pan. Next, I'm going to add some olive oil to my broccoli, that way when we add the seasonings they stick nicely again. I'm just going to repeat the seasonings I used on the potatoes with the Parmesan Ranch seasoning, the buttery steakhouse seasoning, garlic powder, and red pepper flakes. Once you get that all situated, it's going back in the oven for 15 minutes. Now that I pulled this out after the 15 minutes, I'm just going to make sure that my broccoli is cooking, and then I'm also going to flip over my sausage so it can brown on the other side. Once you get those all flipped over, this is going back in the oven for 10 more minutes. Everything should be fully cooked and tender now. If it's not, you can add it back in the oven for a few more minutes. Just keep an eye on it to make sure that your potatoes are not burning. Now I'm going to add on about a cup to a cup and a half of shredded mild cheddar cheese. Once you get the cheese on, put that back in the oven for 2 minutes, just long enough to let the cheese melt. As you can see, the cheese has melted really nicely over the potatoes, sausage, and broccoli. This is what my plate looked like. I had a little bit of everything, and I actually just topped it with a little spoonful of sour cream and some parsley, of course. Next up, we're making this 3-ingredient pork tenderloin with sweet potatoes. And I have shared this recipe before, just did it a little differently. I'll link that video below for you. I started by preheating my oven to 375, and then I am peeling and cubing 2 medium sweet potatoes. I'm adding all my sweet potatoes over to a sprayed baking sheet. I'm going to add a little bit more olive oil over the top. To season my sweet potatoes, again, I'm not measuring, I'm just going to cover them nicely with some Italian seasoning, salt, pepper, and onion powder. And again, I'm going to get in there with my hands and make sure those get covered very well. Now I'm just going to spread those out as evenly as I can across the baking sheet, and these are going in the oven for 10 minutes. While those are in the oven, we're going to get our pork tenderloin and seasoning done. So I'm mixing 1 cup of brown sugar with 1 packet of this Italian seasoning mix. That's all you need for this. Trust me, it's so delicious. Once I have that mixed up, I'm just going to set that aside. And now that my potatoes are done, I'm just going to move those around. And I am sorry that the footage got a little blurry with this. I think that the foil reflections were just kind of throwing my camera off a little, so there are some blurry points in this video. I use another piece of foil just to kind of make a bowl, that way my pork tenderloin juices all stay in this. I sprayed it down with a little bit of nonstick spray, and then I added in my small pork tenderloin. I'm going to top this with half of the mixture of our brown sugar seasoning mix, and we're going to reserve the other half for halfway through baking and when we add the rest of it. Now I'm adding this back in the oven for about 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, this is what it should look like. As you can see, some of the brown sugar mixture has come off and fallen into the foil. That's why you're going to use the rest of the seasoning mix now and just add that over the top. And I am mixing up my potatoes as well. I don't want them to burn, but I want them to get nice and crispy on all sides. Once you get that all done, it's going back in the oven again for an additional 10 minutes. When you pull it out of the oven, you just want to make sure that your pork tenderloin has reached a safe temperature. I let my tenderloin rest for about 10 minutes before I moved it over here and sliced it up for serving. Here's what my finished plate looked like. I love these crispy sweet potatoes, and the sweet potatoes with the brown sugar tenderloin, the flavors really complement each other, and you can even dip your sweet potatoes in the juices from the tenderloin to sweeten up your potatoes even more. Next up, we are going to be making the sheet pan quesadilla, and I've been wanting to try this recipe for so long. I'm starting by preheating my oven to 400 degrees. Next, I'm chopping up half of a yellow onion. And into my skillet, I'm browning up 1 pound of ground beef. I am going to add that onion in here and let those both cook together. Once my meat was fully cooked, I did drain off the grease, and now I'm going to add about 1 packet of taco seasoning. And I'm going to add a dash of this chipotle chili powder. The last thing you need to add is 1 cup of your favorite salsa. I used a medium salsa. Go ahead and get that well combined. Now for this recipe, I'm using a smaller sheet pan because there's only 2 of us. I did not think I needed to use a bigger sheet pan. I sprayed this down with a little bit of olive oil spray. Came out a little thick, so I used my hand to spread it around. And now I'm going to take a package of tortillas, starting with 1 in the center, 1 on each end, and 2 on each of the sides. And you're going to lay those halfway on your sheet pan, that way they can be folded over. Once you have that all covered up, save 1 tortilla for the end. I'm adding on 1 cup of Mexican style shredded cheese to the very bottom. Next, I'm going to add my meat and salsa mixture on top of that. Make sure you spread it around as evenly as you can. And then you'll take the rest of your cheese, which should be about 1 more cup, and add that to the top of the meat and spread it around the best you can. Now we're going to take our last tortilla and add that to the center, and then you're just going to fold over each of the other tortillas until everything has been closed inside. This is going in the oven to bake for 20 minutes. With this recipe, after adding it into the oven, you want to make sure you add something else over the top of them. I'm just using another sheet pan. You just need something with a little weight to it to hold everything together while it bakes. After those 20 minutes, I removed that top sheet pan and I'm going to let this bake for another 5 to 7 minutes just to let the top get a little bit more crispy. Here it is coming out of the oven. I let this sit for a few minutes before cutting into it, and I just used a pizza cutter that seemed to work the best to get through this. This is what my plate looked like, and we both really enjoyed this recipe. As you can see, I served it with a little bit of Spanish rice, and then I added on some sour cream, extra salsa, some pico, a little bit of avocado, and some green onions. For the last recipe, we're going to be making these ranch pork chops with smashed potatoes. Go ahead and preheat your oven to 400 degrees. In this bowl, I have 1.5 pounds of petite gold potatoes, and I'm just going to add a little bit of olive oil over top of those with a little bit of salt, no need to measure. I'm just going to get those mixed up really well, and then we're going to take those over to the air fryer. If you don't have an air fryer, you could also boil these or cook them in the microwave until they are fork tender. These are going to cook on 400 degrees for 20 minutes. On my sheet pan, I actually took the foil and divided the sheet pan in half. That way 1/2 can be used for my potatoes and 1/2 can be used for my pork chops. Right now, I just sprayed 1/2 with some olive oil spray, and I have 5 thick cut pork chops. I'm just trying to make those fit on this side. Next, I have 1/2 a packet of ranch seasoning. I'm just going to spread that across all of these pork chops, along with some smoked paprika, oregano, and black pepper. This is something you do not need to measure. You just want to make sure that they are covered very nicely, and you're going to repeat the same thing on the other side. I just used my hands to make sure that they were rubbed in really well before flipping them over to season the other side. Now that those are seasoned up, I'm going to flip the sheet pan around to the opposite side. I'm spraying that with a little bit of olive oil nonstick spray. Here's what my potatoes look like after the 20 minutes in the air fryer. I'm just going to dump those onto my sheet pan. Next, you're going to need something small. You can use a potato masher or you can use the bottom of a glass. You're just going to use that to press your potatoes down until they are about 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 inch thick, depending on how big your potato is. Once you have all those smashed, go ahead and just move that over to the side. We have 3 tablespoons of melted butter in this bowl. I'm adding 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, a 1/2 teaspoon of Italian seasoning, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt and pepper. Go ahead and spoon that over all of your potatoes. Try to keep it as even as possible, but you want to make sure that they're all coated very nicely. The next thing I'm doing is shaking a little bit of grated Parmesan cheese over the top. And if you do not like the flavor of grated Parmesan cheese after it's gotten a little crusty in the oven, then I would wait until after to add this. Now this is going in the oven for about 15 to 20 minutes until your pork chops are cooked all the way through. Just to finish these off, I'm taking a little bit of Parmesan cheese and adding it to each of the potatoes, as well as some parsley, and then I'm going to put this back in the oven for 2 to 3 minutes, long enough to melt the cheese, and then this is done. Here is what my finished plate looked like. The green on my pork chop is fresh parsley, just so you know. I had a pork chop and then some of these smashed potatoes, which got really crispy on the bottoms. And the skin got really nice and crispy from the air fryer, so that was really great. But we absolutely love this dinner and would definitely make it again. Thanks so much for watching. I really hope you enjoy these 4 sheet pan dinners. Let me know if you try any below, and I'll see you guys next time.